Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
What is up, Top Rope Nation? Settle in. This is going to be a good one. I am confident. I'm ready. Kyle, I know you're ready. You got the notes ready. Justin's hyped for this one. It's episode 232 of the flagship Top Rope Nation podcast. My name is Ryan Drosty, joined by Kyle Ross and Justin Joint, as I mentioned. And tonight, we're looking back 3 whole years at WWE. And when the McMahon family told us things were finally going to change, where are we after that declaration? We're going to go into it tonight. Before we do, let's go around the horn and talk to the boys. Justin Joint, across town from me here in Iowa, had a little bit of a wild night last night. Windstorms, it was 70 degrees. We had tornadoes on the ground a week before Christmas. What's going on, Justin?
Just happy to be alive, survived the storm, and most importantly, didn't lose power, which is crucial.
It is crucial because we were doing that playback app show last night. Once again, we talked about it on the pod last week. We did a watch along to AEW Dynamite Winter is Coming. Kyle, Justin, and myself. We were streaming live. You could watch the show with us. It was, literally the TNT broadcast on the stream we were doing over there on the app. If you want to join us next time, make sure you get in that Top Rope Nation Facebook discussion group. We post the links there exclusively and on the Patreon page. Justin, did you enjoy yourself?
I had an absolute blast.
It was a good time. Good time. Kyle, what about you, my friend? How are things going out in Ohio? Did you enjoy yourself last night in the watch along?
I did. Well, I'm still getting over just how great Danielson and Page was last night. Just what a match. I've watched it a second time. What do you got to say about that?
Oh,
have you really?
Turd.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
I haven't had a chance yet. So it holds up upon second viewing?
Yes, and there was a lot of little things that, for instance, if you're doing a watch along with a couple of buddies that you may not have picked up the first time. And I think, some of the critiques of it may not have held up necessarily on, some of the criticisms, on second viewing. I thought it was absolutely outstanding, and it might be my overall match of the year.
Oh, wow.
When we do that. I really loved it. But hopefully it was not the Texas tornado that came after you guys.
No.
Last night.
No. Couple F1 tornadoes were about 45 minutes north of us. Didn't come through where Justin and I live, so that was good. But the rain was pouring down as we were doing that watch along, hitting the window right next to me. I was surprised people couldn't hear it on the mic. So it was a wild night. Crazy wind.
As we're going to get through, there's a lot of probably different things you could play as the show outro for this particular podcast tonight. But what about throwing on that Texas tornado theme song? It's kind of a banger.
I actually always like that song, man. I might have to do that. I think I will.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, listeners. That's coming.
Mm-hmm. But enough about Kerry Von Erich and more about the WWE, I suppose. We should probably get into this, right?
Yeah. So, here's the thing. With our pod lately, we have been concentrating more on AEW simply because I think right now, we all agree it's a better product right now. But we wanted to look back at WWE and what they've done over the last 3 years because they did make that big promise to us. If you're on the podcast feed, I'm going to play the clip. If you're here on the video feed, I'm going to have to just read some quotes. I'm sorry, guys. YouTube will flag us for copyright violations. Yeah. I can't do it. But listen to the audio feed and you'll hear it.
Yeah, just a quick thing. So I was sitting in the afternoon, as I often do, thinking about pro wrestling. And I was like, God, the last 3 years of WWE, if you go back to WrestleMania 35 and everything that's happened since then, I was thinking of what is the good stuff in WWE over a 3-year stretch? Normally, if I throw out any 3-year stretch to you guys in the history of this company, since you've been watching, you can probably rattle off some stuff real quick, right? And I was really struggling. I'm like, God, what a just god-awful period this has been. And then I was thinking, I was like, when did the McMahons cut that dumb promo? And I said, oh my God, it's coming up next week, the 3-year anniversary. We could tie this all together and make a podcast, because originally we were going to do like a year in review. But here at Top Rope Nation, we always like to do things a little bit bigger. What if we did a 3-year in review on the WWE?
Hey, we always bite off more than we can chew, so why not? No, we're prepared. We are prepared. The notes are meticulous tonight. Got to give a shout out to Kyle on this one. Yeah, it's going to be good.
So do we have some housekeeping, I assume, that we would like to get
I probably should do that. I should be a professional host and throw out the fact that we are streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming to 4 services right now: YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. So wherever you are watching, follow us. Hit the subscribe button. It helps so much. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button as well. We would greatly appreciate it. If you're listening to the podcast feed, where 90% of our listeners are, if you're not already subscribed, please do so you never miss a show. Leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Better yet, a written review. We read them on the air. Haven't had one come in a couple of weeks, so maybe next week we'll have one. But yeah, get those reviews in. We greatly appreciate it. If you leave your Twitter or Instagram username in the review, I'll send you a free Top Rope Nation sticker in the mail. And of course, link is in the description to the Patreon page. It's the best way to support Top Rope Nation. If you go to our Patreon page and sign up for just $5 a month, you get upwards of 5 bonus shows each and every month. Next month, we're going to be putting out 2 editions of Top Rope Nation Classics, which is always, our #1 reviewed show by patrons. It's what most people sign up for. It's our monthly deep dive on a classic wrestling event. Next month, early in January, we're going to be looking at the first ever WWF Shotgun Saturday Night, back when they actually did the show in bars in New York City. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then at the end of the month, we'll be looking back at whatever our patrons vote for, because we'll have our monthly poll. It'll probably be a Royal Rumble show, but we'll see what happens there. We'll be accepting nominations over on the Patreon page.
And I'll be, of course, running the Dominion machine to make sure that a certain option wins.
So we want to definitely thank all of our patrons. If you're on the video stream, you're seeing their names right there at the bottom. Last week, I shouted out Chris, who had just joined. No new patrons this week, so nobody new to shout out. Let's change that next week. I'd like a couple new names to announce to the listeners.
Just on that front, I'm not one to sway anybody or suggest anything, far be it for me to tell the listeners what to do. But, who wouldn't want us to do like a review of, I don't know, the 1992 Royal Rumble for its 30-year anniversary? I don't know.
What other podcast had a guy once turn around so we knew that he wasn't cheating and call off all of the entrants in order of the 92 Rumble? I think you might have got one wrong, Kyle.
Yeah, it was Hulk Hogan, too. I think I got Hulk Hogan and Skinner mixed up. The only time anyone in the history of pro wrestling has gotten Hulk Hogan and Skinner mixed up.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, if it wins, you're going to do eliminations in order.
Ooh. Don't let him study in advance, Justin. Can't have that. That would be a fun show. It's actually kind of amazing that we're closing in on 30 Top Rope Nation Classics. That blindfold's awesome. 30 Top Rope Nation Classics, and we've never done the 92 Rumbles. So, yeah, it would be a fun one. No pressure, guys. Yeah, no pressure at all, patrons, on what you nominate or vote for. But just throwing it out there.
It's only the best Royal Rumble ever, by a lot.
Guys, if you're joining us live right now, let us know your thoughts on the topics we're talking about, or just check in with us. We'd love to see that chat room get popping tonight, as it has been in recent weeks. So let us know you're here and that you're watching live. I can see some of the live streaming numbers here as we go. So I know you're out there. Let us know you're listening.
Hey, before we get started, I got to know. I'm watching Kyle pound Coca-Cola. Does caffeine not affect you? You can just go right to bed afterwards, or...
He doesn't sleep.
I don't sleep very much, and I also do something to completely shut my mind off before I go to bed, usually.
Memories of Chicago are coming back to me.
We bring it up, and then we bring it back down. That's what we do.
Very nice. All right, Kyle, bring it all together here. Tell us what we're talking about again and get the discussion flowing. You're kind of going to be in the driver's seat tonight, so let them have it. The floor is yours.
Okay, so first off, I think I wanted to do a big picture summation of my frustration with this rather hideous promotion, meaning WWE. And to do so, I think we really need to go back 3 years in time to this promo in question. So if you're listening right now and kind of want to listen to this real quick, we're going to run through some quotes. It is Monday Night Raw from December 17th, 2018. I posted a link to the promo in our Facebook group, and I know a lot of people have already watched it, so you know what I'm talking about. I think a lot of people remember this one. The four McMahons, Vince, Stephanie, Shane, and Hunter, came out there and with their tail between their legs a little bit, admitted that the product hadn't been good lately and that they were going to fix it themselves, which is quite humorous for a number of reasons. And, you know, in the coming months, weeks, years, you'd see wholesale changes and this product was going to get so much better. And that really hasn't happened, at least in my view. But let's talk about the promo itself first, Ryan. I know that you wanted to run through the quotes just for those listening here live on YouTube.
Yeah. So for those of you on the video stream right now, you're looking at a picture of that very night and the promo that they gave. I'm not going to be able to insert the audio, like I said, here on the video stream. If you're on the podcast stream, let's listen to what they said on that night. And for those of you here right now, let me just read off some of the quotes verbatim of what was said. We had Stephanie McMahon take the mic, and Stephanie says, "We're out here tonight because we haven't been doing a very good job for you lately. We haven't been doing the one thing that my father has always taught us to do, and that's listen to our audience. All of that is going to change, and it starts tonight. We're off to a fresh start." It should also be noted that all of these people got a massive reaction from that live crowd that night. They cheered everything that they said. They were eating it up. Triple H gets on the mic. "The days of absentee management are over. As of now, 4 of us will be taken back Monday Night Raw." Shane chimes in, says that goes for SmackDown too.
Well, which I think sort of got a tepid response, if I remember.
Yes. We had Stephanie get back on the mic. She says, "We're going to empower our superstars. We're going to empower all of you. We're going to give you, all of you, what you want, something new, something fresh." This is Triple H talking. "In the coming weeks and months, you'll be seeing new faces, new matchups. As of now, you are the authority."
Oh my God.
And then Vince McMahon got on the mic. Vince looked pretty rough here, I got to say, on that night.
Nothing like now, though.
No, it's true. Vince goes, "As long as we give you less of what you don't want and more of what you do, WWE will always be then, now, and forever."
Well, vomit.
Yes.
That was so bad when he
Jesus.
said that. I noted that right away. I was like, oh my God. You just know
So
he
bad.
wanted to say that. Well, I've got a couple takeaways first. And then we
Go right
can
ahead,
all
sir.
do that. All right, number one, this Hunter Hearst Helmsley, okay? How insulting was it to insinuate, quote, the McMahons were taking back Raw, as if they weren't controlling it already?
Right.
Like, and the only thing that was worse than him saying that, as you mentioned, right, were the people who popped for it in the arena. They're like, yeah, the McMahons. They're
Yes.
what is wrong? I mean, well,
Eating it up, man.
I'm sitting here now, not watching the promo. I just have these like nerdy replica belt wearing people who like bow at Vince when he comes out in my mind, and I just sort of want to like
Hang on a
vomit.
second. I have some replica belts straight behind me, Kyle. You better tread carefully.
Oh. Well, you're not
You see,
wearing it.
I don't wear them to events.
I mean, are you wearing them to the event, like pretending you're the champ?
No, I do not do that.
One thing. Wearers. I said it, replica belt wearers.
Yes.
Little personal pot shot here. Okay, it's our podcast, so we can say what we want. I thought Vince came off like a real tool, not just at the end with that then, now, forever line, but at the beginning when he introduced him. I think there was a little bit of the intro that we left in there. He was rambling. You know, he wanted people to pop for how long Raw had been on the air.
I think he was almost thrown off a little bit by the what chants or annoyed openly annoyed by the what chants. And honestly, like even with the then, now, forever thing, it didn't sound like even he believed what he was saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we think Vince wanted to do that promo? Did he
Probably
have to be
not.
talked?
I think,
I
yeah.
agree.
I think he
Yeah,
needed
I
to be
don't think
talked
so.
into it. I don't think it's in his DNA to admit that anything he does is bad or wrong.
Agree.
Yeah, totally agree. So, this was post Kevin Owens headbutt. It should be taught, which, God, man, I cognitively, he just doesn't seem the same since that angle, does he? When he took that shoot frickin' headbutt from Kevin Owens.
Yeah. That's
I'll
true.
tell you, how about that? Maybe hats off to Kevin Owens. He got the shoot headbutt Vince McMahon, and now he's getting $2 to $3 million from him. Wow, not a lot of people can say. Nails
Bang,
didn't,
2 to 3 million, pal. Huh?
yeah.
But,
Nails didn't get $2 to $3 million when he hit him.
But, talking about how we got to where we are, at least speaking of, the end of 2018 here, that great moment basically had no payoff. I mean, that was just about the end of it. I think he started a feud with Shane McMahon, and that just ended up petering out.
Yeah, I mean, that built it. Yeah, it was, it led to Bryan coming back, I guess, conveniently. But still, you're right. There was like no payout, and then like Owens and Zayn lost, and Kurt Angle had that TNA line at the night after WrestleMania. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of many things we'll talk about, angles that tend to go nowhere. Fresh matchups, fresh stars. I was in tears when I heard that. And we'll have more on that in a bit, how dire that outlook looks in 2022. And I want to offer a reminder. This was not what we played for the podcast, but this needs to be brought up. After this promo, the McMahons were like interrupted by Baron Corbin, who was doing a GM gimmick at the time. Remember this? Maybe you don't.
Yeah, because they make a reference to like middle level management or something like that in the promo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and Baron Corbin was made the storyline scapegoat for the poor ratings. It wasn't like a heel thing where they were like, hey, you've been abusing your power. And there was like some great payoff creatively to like a traditional heel would get. No, Baron Corbin came out and the McMahons essentially told their audience, you suck and you're the reason this show is doing bad ratings. Which is a hell of a thing to say about a performer. Justin Joint, where can I find Baron Corbin right now?
Happy Corbin on SmackDown? Fuck, I don't know.
He's on WWE television still 3 years later. That to me is just amazing that you would just be like, this guy sucks. And he's like, he's the reason this show blows. Yeah, well, he's still on TV. And I think he was in a main event program less than a year with Rollins.
Arguably, he's had some of the best creative on the show this year. I mean, to be honest with you.
Well, the pre-happy.
I mean,
Corbin.
it's a low bar, but
yeah, those vignettes. But so just for some context too, going back to 2018, Showbuzz Daily reported that the week prior, December 10th of 2018, that episode of Raw averaged 2.1 million viewers, 2,193,000 to be exact. Again, week before this McMahon promo we're talking about, and the impetus for it, obviously. The number was down from December 3rd, where they did 2.2 million. Second straight week that Raw hit its all-time viewership low. So this sounds a little familiar. And this is crazy here. The December 10th show averaged a 0.75 rating in 18 to 49.
Wow. Holy crap.
That's double now, right?
Yeah,
They
float between a 0.5 and 0.35 this year. I got something on viewership for you. You know how many times this year they've hit 2 million average viewers for Raw? Like total this whole year? We've almost had 52 weeks of television. We're close to the end of December.
I'm going to say 1 or 2.
3 times. Okay. 3 times for the entire year they've hit 2 million viewers in 2021. And yeah, this was setting the low 3 years ago. 2.1 or whatever it was you said, Kyle.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
The third hour did over 2 million viewers. Yeah,
third hour is really tanks these days. In fact,
there's no way they've done 2 million for a third hour this year, have they?
No, this week's, I'm trying to find the number right now. I know, like, they fell off a cliff for the third hour. They pretty much always do. Almost always.
No, this week wasn't that bad, actually. I think it was like, it held at like 1.6. It was the Becky Liv match where it really fell off a cliff, where it was down to like 1.3 or something.
Yeah. Normally the third hour, though.
Always.
Down, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the least Feud hour. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing. But, I know there's more TV options now, and it's not fair to compare in the past, just like it wasn't fair in the 90s to like say, the first main event show did 33 million. I don't see them doing. Well, I mean, that was preposterous. There was 5 things on television at that time. But WWE would kill for those numbers, man.
I mean, 3 years ago is pretty damn similar to right now.
Yeah,
I mean, they had the same Monday Night Football competition. Streaming TV was already huge. I had YouTube TV 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that much difference. Not like you're comparing to 15 years ago, 10 years ago even.
They're down. Let's say Raw recently has been doing like 1.5, 1.6 million, right? So that's down like 600,000 from 3 years ago, which isn't as bad. I actually looked this up. I don't have it in front of me though. But it was like the drop in average from 2015 to 2018. Again, 3 years gap was like 1.2 million was the average. And again, as the total viewership's gone down, obviously the drops get smaller, but you're always getting that drop if you go, every 3 years. But let's kind of push things forward here. The biggest takeaway for me from that promo is the WWE has not gotten better over the last 3 years. And my thesis, which I will submit to you and the listeners, is that creatively, note the word creatively, speaking, 2019 to 2021 is the worst 3-year stretch since Vince took over the company. Do you agree with that?
Oh, man.
Well, this
it's tough.
past year.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say
it's tough because like it depends what you're evaluating on. Like, are you evaluating match quality? No, but making you actually care about the product, it's definitely in the running.
I'm talking like storylines, booking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say being a regular watcher of wrestling, this past year's been the least amount of WWE I have watched since I came back in 2011. Like, by far, in a way. They've just beat me to the point where it's like I just can't care about this stuff that they obviously don't care about.
Agree. And you know what really drives that home is the fact that we watched all this pandemic era programming in the Thunderdome, and we couldn't wait for him to get back in front of live crowds. And now Raw and SmackDown is in front of live crowds again. And more often than not, you feel no inclination to watch, even after all that time of waiting for it to happen. I mean, that's a huge indictment.
And there was some concern expressed on this program about that because we had talked about, everyone was like, oh, well, WWE's boring. It's slipping because of the pandemic and, and whatever. But 2019, okay, smelled. 2019 WWE was bad. Like, after that, from WrestleMania to the end of that year, that was bad.
Yeah, I mean, early 2019 wasn't bad. It got very bad by the end of the year, culminating in Brock beating Kofi in seconds. I think, really showed you the trajectory we were on. I think early 2019. So if you rewind a second and you think, okay, what did they do that was actually different coming out of that promo? The product did get a little bit edgier right after that. I actually went back and I listened a little bit to some of the podcasts we did around that time, and we were talking about that. And we talked about, AEW was coming in. A couple weeks after that promo, AEW was officially announced on late New Year's Eve, early New Year's Day that morning. And so we had talked about on our pod, did they feel some pressure? With that announcement coming, is this why they were acknowledging their shortcomings? And they did a couple like more adult-oriented storylines at the time. Like they had, right after this, they had this thing where Alexa Bliss was backstage without a top on. Remember that? They like just showed her back and she turned around and she was covering herself up. They did the storyline with Jimmy Uso and Naomi and Mandy Rose. That was like pushing the envelope a little bit. So they did change in that way. And then, like if you want to say,
we're really scraping here. Get that bottom of the barrel out.
No, I'm not trying to defend them. I'm just pointing out like some of the stuff that happened. So early 2019, of course, leading up to WrestleMania, we got the main event with the women. People were pissed though that Charlotte Flair got thrown into that and made it a triple threat. I know we've had some debates about that over time, whether it's in the Facebook groups or here. I still don't think that was the right decision. Nope. I know, Kyle, you don't think it was the right decision. I don't either. I think Ronda Becky is what they should have done. We still haven't got it. We're almost 3 years later now. We thought we might get it later that year. Didn't happen.
And even if we do get it, it's not going to be as hot as it was back then.
Exactly. But they did go with the flow with Becky's, rise. She was the hottest thing in the promotion. They put it in the main event. That was the right decision. And the whole Kofi Kingston situation was completely forced by the crowd, right? Like that was not supposed to happen. And it was very similar, kind of to what happened with Bryan in some ways, where the crowd forced the issue. And we get, ironically, Kofi winning the title from Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. And that was a good match. It was a great moment. So I think of 2019, there's some good moments, but it's all early in the year. As that year dragged on, it got terrible, to your point, Kyle. And then if we go into 2020 and 2021, the highlights to me are going to be a lot less. And 2019 is clearly superior to 2020 or 2021.
Well, okay, and that's what I want to get to. All right, I'll concede those two things. Kofi Mania and the women getting to headline WrestleMania. Becky Lynch, for a time, was the hottest performer in the company. Okay, I personally am not as high on either of those two things as most fans are, particularly WWE fans. But other than those two things, which again, you have pointed out, early in 2019, okay? So that's the earliest part possible of a time period we're talking about. What's on your 2019 to 2021 WWE comp tape, Justin? Like, if I'm like, hey, dude, like,
Justin's face.
I woke up out of a 3-year coma, and I want you to share with me the best of what WWE did. What are you putting on that? Other than what Ryan just mentioned.
I think just the 2020 Royal Rumble, and that's probably it.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, I knew you were going to bring that up. Yeah, that came to mind for me. The Sasha Bailey feud,
I guess.
Yeah, I mean Bailey's 2020.
Yeah, but like to me, I was thinking about that even, and it was good, but the standard by which it was good was kind of sad because it was actually just a feud that was sort of done logically. It wasn't anything like particularly special. It was like WWE actually just saw a feud from start to finish without screwing it up. And if that's the bar that we're giving them credit, that's kind of sad. I mean, again, so that's the 2020. I mean, Daniel Bryan, don't call him Bryan Danielson, had a couple good matches early in the year before he left.
Yeah.
But like, and I'm going to have a note on match quality that'll blow some people's mind and really get some people upset, I believe.
So are you saying that Seth Rollins taking the eye of Rey Mysterio isn't something you're going to tell your grandkids about?
Oh, God.
No, I mean, that's the thing, too. Like, how many, if you brought stuff up, how many bad things have we forgotten from these 3 years? It used to be, if I threw out a 3-year period, you could name probably the 2 or 3 really dumb things they did. But there wasn't these other horrible things that were just because there's so many of them, you forget about. That's a perfect example. No one even cares that happened. They did an angle where a man's eye allegedly fell out, and no one cares.
Yeah, I guess looking at the other highlights, you mentioned the Rumble, Justin. Drew was definitely the biggest casualty of the pandemic because he got such a pop. When he won the Rumble, and that would have been a great moment at WrestleMania if he didn't win it in front of an empty Performance Center. Same with Edge's return. His initial return, the pop he got at the Rumble was so good, and then he had injured.
Then he had that match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania, which
the awful one. Yeah, that was not great. But I mean, he got injured after that, and he missed some time. But the pandemic certainly hurt Edge's return. 2019, Kyle, and you're going to cringe when I say this, but upon the initial debut, we did like The Fiend because it was different. And the way, before the Hell in a Cell completely ruined him with Seth Rollins, that was a good moment in 2019. Like his initial debut, it was good. Although
I believe we said, well, this was different, but you can't have a main event, do this as a main event gimmick. I'm like 99% sure. Again, the memory's a little shoddy sometimes. But I remember, and once he got to the main event and they did The Fiend, we're like, okay, you got to get rid of this Firefly Funhouse bullshit because that's just not a main event act. And then they didn't do it. And that's not, I mean, yeah, that Hell in a Cell in 2019. Yeah. Kofi, and as much as people love the moment of Kofi Kingston winning the title, his title run sucked. Let's just absolutely call a spade and a turkey a turkey. That title run stuck. And I'm not saying it was necessarily his fault, but it was just one of those, like, everybody comes out and says, Kofi, that was a great underdog moment, but you're not really a deserving champion. And it was rinse, repeat. And then he got his ass completely handed to him, like you mentioned, by Brock Lesnar. Yeah. And that pretty much drove the point home that they were telling.
They probably should have just gone back to Bryan within a couple months, because what he was doing was great as the Planet's champion.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
But even that, this is just an aside, I have always viewed the Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston little mini feud and match that they had at WrestleMania as a lesser version of Daniel Bryan and Triple H from 5 years earlier. And that's coming from the biggest Triple H critic in the world, yours truly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Cain Velasquez, WWE superstar.
That's terrible. Terrible.
So I think the point is we've driven this home, and the listeners at home can play along. Think of to this barren wasteland with their favorite moment of last year's. The bottom line is there ain't many. Justin joined. I believe there was a hand raise.
I don't want to interrupt your thought. Go ahead and finish it.
No, it actually was done.
I'm just curious. In this moment, when you guys watched this promo, did you believe it at all that they might actually make some changes?
Boy, I wanted to believe. The fact that they were doing this on television made me think there was a chance. And like I said, like initially it did seem like they were making some changes. I'm not saying that the stuff that they were doing with the women was something that I wanted to see especially, but early in the year, like I was going into, there was reason to be somewhat optimistic because they listened to us on Kofi Kingston, they listened to us on Becky. And so like there was, for about 3 months, there was some positive things happening.
They brought up a handful of NXT stars almost immediately, but then 6 months later, they were all firmly entrenched in the mid card.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't mention Roman yet.
More on that later, by the way.
Yeah. Roman's return, like initially, obviously, that was a huge, huge victory for them creatively. The character was awesome. We've talked about recently I think it was on the pod. Do so many shows now, I can't remember. It was the pod or the watch along or Top Rope Nation Extra that, it's kind of got boring lately. But for the first several months when Roman first came back, it was really good stuff.
You mean,
as a heel, what we wanted to see.
You're right. I can't believe we didn't mention it because I think that's what a lot of WWE fans are going to point to is this Roman Reigns character. But even that, like you just said, it's gotten quite repetitive.
Yeah.
To the point. That's exactly why we didn't think of it. Is because we're kind of tired of it.
Yes, it's kind of.
Yeah. I want to get to one of these chats quick before we turn the page here. So chimed in. He said, "Let's say Vince steps aside and Nick Khan takes over in 2022. How do you think 2022 to 2025 will compare then versus these past 3?" So, a couple of things. I mean, so Nick Khan's a business guy. He's not a wrestling guy. And for that reason, it maybe would improve, I think, because Vince is so hands-on that if Khan was in Vince's shoes, he would solely handle business. He wouldn't get involved in creative. So you would have some different voices there at the top of the food chain. So I don't think is going to happen. Like, I don't think there's any chance of that happening. But if it did, I actually do think there's a pretty good chance it would improve because I do think the big problem right now is Vince is so out of touch and he's the final say. Like all you have to do is listen to the people who lead that company everyone says the same thing. It doesn't matter if you have a good idea, if Vince is not on board, it's not going to happen. And that, there's people in the writing room, we've talked about this before, there's people in the writing room that know aspects of this product suck. But it doesn't matter because in the end, what Vince wants to see is what happens. Even though they have, 50 plus writers, it comes down to Vince. If you remove him from the equation, I do think you would get better creative, honestly.
Yes, but here's the problem. Who is Nick Khan going to have running the wrestling product? Is he going to get rid of Paul? Yeah, and Hunter, who did he learn? I mean, people are going to point to NXT, but Hunter would not run Raw and SmackDown the way he ran NXT. I don't have a ton of faith in Paul Levesque running the show. I mean, would it be better than Vince? Yes. Vince is a massive, massive problem right now. But, I mean, I think you would have less of the just things turning on a whim because you have this old man running things and he gets bored with something or he forgets or just doesn't want to do it anymore. You'd have less of that. It would be better. But the problem with WWE is they're so set in their ways that they just don't want to do any sort of major change. I've said this in discussions, again, on the Facebook group before, and I believe on this pod. Like, 1993 WWF was not a success financially by any objective measure. But when I go back and watch, like, it's so much easier for me to watch than any of these last 3 years because it was such a departure from, like, the previous year. You had Raw, right? They tried new stuff in 93. There was an influence of Memphis booking because Jerry Jarrett was there. And okay, yeah, a lot of it didn't work, but at least they tried.
Yeah.
And it's easier to, and we're going to get to this in a little bit. I want to see things progress and change. WWE, it doesn't feel like things change very often. So I think we've kind of established a real dearth of highlights over the last 3 years. People are going to try to say that, compare it to the mid-90s. Again, I just brought up 93 and say, well, what about that period? Well, that brings me to this point on match quality. Okay, so again, obviously right now, way more financially successfble than any other period in history, the company. Specifically, I mean, the mid-90s in particular. But you look at this match quality that people always talk about with the WWE. Oh, well, the storylines suck, but these guys always bring it in the ring. When it comes to high-end matches, I'll take that mid-90s period any day of the week over the last 3 years. In all due respect, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a lot of big names on the internet who, give a lot of high ratings sometimes to these matches because it's a certain style they like. I do not see a lot of high-end matches in modern WWE. I mean, there are ratings I see, and I just laugh. I'm like, what are we doing? 4 3/4 stars for the men's War Games? It was a quarter star less than 92? Are you insane?
Yeah,
That's bad.
The match
that is insanity.
The match with 38 freaking minutes. Okay,
love
it was
you,
a
Uncle
bunch
Dave,
of
but come
random
on.
people. And yeah, I mean, I just find some of those highly questionable. And there's so many multi-person matches. These Money in the Banks, which get high ratings from people, and it's just interchangeable. Like, you can watch these matches, and it's like you see the people in them, but they're like nameless and faceless for the most part because they just put these people in. Why not? They haven't been built up. It's like, well, this guy could take a couple good bumps. It will, and just to drive this home with match quality, I specifically didn't put the time in because I want to blow your mind on this. Excluding NXT UK, and 205 Live, okay? I'm just talking about Raw, SmackDown, and the pay-per-views. When do you think the last time I gave a WWE match 4.5 stars was? And can you name the match for a bonus point?
Ooh.
It won this year. I'll give you a hint.
I mean, are you counting like NXT UK?
No, that's what I said.
The main roster. Okay.
Yeah, excluding NXT, and not NXT,
Oh, okay,
not NXT UK, not 205 Live. Because there was a 4.5 star match on 205 Live once.
2018? Is that the year? Farther
back?
Ooh, wow.
There's one match in 2018 you could maybe talk me into giving 4.5 stars, and it's one that most people wouldn't think of. It would be the Daniel Bryan AJ Styles match on SmackDown that people forgot. It was right before they went to Saudi Arabia, and they did the match instead because Bryan didn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. They did a match with no near falls. I think Bryan just did it just to flip off everyone in the back, and I love him for it. I just met, but by the way, I just mentioned one of the people that was in it. So just so we don't go long, it was John Cena, AJ Styles at the 2017 Royal Rumble.
Oh wow! All right.
There has not been a legit match of the year contender, Raw, SmackDown, or pay-per-view since that match, and I don't give a damn what anyone says.
Our guy Bryan checking in the chat. Bryan was at Winter's Coming last night in Texas. He says, if Vince steps down, Bruce seems like he would be the heir to the throne at this point. Bruce and Johnny seem to be pushing Triple H out of the inner circle. Bruce Pritchard. I just don't think Bruce Pritchard would have any interest in that spot. Are
you kidding me?
No. You think he would want to run the whole company?
I think he would want to book the company.
But Vince McMahon is running the company. I don't think so. I think Bruce is there because it's an easy job. He's a yes man. He's making a lot of money.
No, he's saying under the scenario that was laid out before with Nick Khan. If Nick Khan, who owns the company, he has to find someone to book the promotion because Nick Khan can't book a wrestling promotion. Bruce, you don't think Bruce Pritchard would want that spot?
I was thinking more along the lines of actually running the promotion. Booking, maybe, Bruce? But I don't know that Bruce would get that spot ahead of Triple H in 2022. I don't think so. I think he's there to just back up Vince's opinion. Same thing with Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace would have a better shot than Bruce, I think, at this point.
Well,
so can I go backwards real quick? I want to ask Kyle, can you articulate at all what it is about the current in-ring product that kind of turns you off or doesn't quite grab you like it maybe used to?
Everything is very samesies. No match particularly stands out. All of the matches, if you look, not all, but the vast majority of matches that get high marks are these freaking multi-person ladder matches that I honest to God, if there was not another ladder match in pro wrestling for 5 years, I would not cry. Like I am so sick of
I agree.
Like I'm trying to think what are the great or it's just pattern matches like Edge and Seth Rollins and Hell in a Cell. I said it on our recap of Crown Jewel with me and Liam. I said right there, I'm like, there's going to be people who think this is a match of the year contender, and they're lying to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like WWE has they almost have a trademark for what makes a good match, and I just see through it, and it's uninteresting. It's almost Pavlovian. I mean, what do you think the best matches are of the last couple of years in WWE? That are, again, excluding NXT, NXT UK, and
to your point, it's when somebody does something different, like when Roman came back playing that heel character, his first, 2 or 3 matches that he had, especially the pay-per-view ones, I thought were really good, but then it kind of, to your point, became formulaic. Mm-hmm.
And to be now, this will blow your mind. The span between 4.5-star matches present to 2017 is longer than say the difference in like 87 to 91, where you would like Savage and Steamboat, and then Savage and Warrior. That was a long gap. There was no 4.5-star matches in between those two. The difference now, and to your point, Justin, I think it's forgetting. There are a ton more, obviously, of like 3.5-star, 4-star matches. But I'm talking about that high end. Like, if you want to go back and compare to that mid-90s period, which, again, financially was not successful, but give me these Brett and Shawn matches any day of the week over anything that's happened in the last 3 years of WWE.
Yeah.
There is no match in the last 3 years in WWE that's as good as Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley in Your House Mind Games. None.
Nothing that seems memorable. That's for
Nothing
sure.
that really stands out. Yeah, I mean that's the problem. It's hard to even for me. It's really hard to even remember the matches because the story surrounding them is just not there to make it to really set it into your mind. Like, okay, what was going on TV at the time, and then you think of the match. Like, it's just not there. You have some good, decent matches, but that's about it.
Yeah, and they're good. There's nothing wrong with a 3-star match, but like they don't like to me a 4.5-star match. That is a match of the year contender. That is at the end of the year when we do our year in review. I will bring that match up in the discussion for match of the year. I'm warning there. I'm not even thinking about a WWE match when we have that discussion. I think what was the best WWE match this year? Was it Bianca and Sasha?
That's the most memorable, honestly, for me.
And it's kind of hurt. You know, it's been a while since I watched it. I don't think I watched it a second time. I went 4 stars on initial viewing.
I watched it the next morning a second time,
okay.
and it was just as good to me.
Yeah, but it's a great match. It's 4 stars, but like now if you watch it, and you look at what's happened to Bianca. Does that cheapen it a little bit?
Well, that's the thing is at the time it was so good too because it meant something. You know, it was, a new star coming up. They put her over great. Sasha was awesome in her role in that. She got the total mega star treatment. But then, as you said, since then, she's been booked like absolute trash. And it's kind of ruined it in hindsight. But in that moment, and even for the next, couple of weeks maybe afterwards, it was awesome moments, super memorable just because of what was going on at the time.
Memorable. That's a key word. Mm-hmm. So, again, Dave Meltzer should do a victory lap from now until the end of time over the way he's influenced the modern in-ring style. But the thing that I disagree most, the thing that he ever said, is that he was like, well, the thing with wrestling now is people forget about all these great matches because there's so many great matches. I think that's absolute BS. People forget about them because they weren't that great in the first place. If you're forgetting about a 4.5-star match, it wasn't a 4.5-star match.
That's a great point.
Now, you guys know me. I'm a weirdo. I could list off probably every match I gave 4.5 stars to from like 1990 to 2005. Now, we don't have enough time. I have no doubt. And that would be weird, okay? It's not hard, to remember. So, it's, again, Dave, because he's influenced the style so much, of course he's going to like everything a lot. But, yeah, I mean, if you're not remembering these things, again, I mentioned, I didn't have Shawn Michaels Mick Foley written down in the notes. It's just a match that comes to me from that time period. It's very easily remembered. And people are going to say, well, because it was so much better than the other stuff. Well, because there's a uniqueness. And that's something that's missing in WWE. And we'll get to that maybe at the end. Uniqueness. Matches don't stand out at all. So nothing can be truly great if nothing stands out.
Can I shit on something else I hate about the current product too regarding matches?
That's what we came here for.
When talking about like somebody taking over for Vince and booking and whatnot, they've got to change some of their production. The camera cuts have just gotten.
Oh God.
Once you start seeing them, you can't unsee it, and it'll completely take you out of a match.
Yes, and that hurts match quality for me too. It took me a long time to realize that that's what it was. That it was all the camera cuts that I just can't sit and. I'm like, God, what is going on here? I'm just like getting taken out of this match. That's a very good point. But going back to what we said earlier about change, they think their production's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
They like Kevin Dunn, I think, thinks he's like so great. Kevin Dunn stinks.
Well, I'm sure they think it's innovative. They think this is where wrestling needs to go.
Yeah.
Do you, Kyle, I was going to ask, do you think the memorability of all those matches from the 90s and the 80s has to do with our age too? I mean, because everyone always loves the wrestling they grew up with the most. And at that point, we were teenagers or younger. Obviously, in our lives, there was less going on. So we really focused on pro wrestling. And now, being adults, have so many things we're juggling, whether it's work or our families. Do you think that plays a little bit, that we have a hard time remembering the shows?
You're right. It can't be as important to us as it was then.
Yeah, it's just not.
I think that's a very fair question. I think it's a very good question. That being said, the top 5 matches in AEW history are Cody versus Dustin, the Young Bucks against Omega Page, Young Bucks against Lucha Bros, Omega versus Danielson, and Danielson versus Page. So it's not hard to remember good matches, even though I'm old now.
This is a good question. Do my students talk about WWE? Almost never. Almost never. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've heard kids talking about pro wrestling in the last 5 years. And in fact, just today, there was a kid putting kind of like a sleeper hold on a kid between classes. I was like, take him out of the sleeper hold. And then I threw out the $1 million dream. They looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about?
They're like, get this guy out of here, man. This guy's freaking giving us homework. He's talking about the $1 million dream. This guy's
No, I mean, it is a loss. It's one of these things I've talked about before. I do think today they're not attracting those young fans that are going to remember it in the same way we did in the 80s and 90s. It's like a skip generation. Never lived through a boom period if you're under 25, really, or really have any memory of that. And I mean, the audience is a lot older, especially WWE. Their audience is very old. You know, I'm almost 40 years old, and I think I'm younger than their median viewer.
Yeah.
The median viewer.
Okay,
So.
to test your theory, name any year of the 2000s, and I think I could tell you like the best WWE matches from that year.
2007.
2007. You've got Cena and Michaels in the match in England on Raw. You've got the 4-way from Backlash with Edge and Orton and Cena and Michaels. It was after the UK match. You got Cena and Umaga at the Royal Rumble. That would be my pick for number 1.
It checks out.
I'm trying to think like what other ones there were. That was a good choice too, because like 2007 is like sort of a bit of a. I'm trying to think what are the other like great matches in 2007. Is somebody like probably yelling at their podcast right now? I'm like trying to go through real quick.
Did you care about Randy Orton versus Triple H? Last Man Standing, No Mercy.
That was okay. That was kind of an interesting pay-per-view. That was the one right after Cena got hurt. Again, okay, so you mentioned I can tell you exactly what Cena got hurt, and they had to like determine a new champion. That actually drew a bit of a number on pay-per-view. I liked Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series, where Shawn couldn't use Sweet Chin Music.
So
I completely forgot about that match, but now I remember.
Maybe it's just me and Ryan who are stuck to our nostalgia picks.
No, I mean you're right. Because there was less to watch, we had less to do. And I have seen, for instance, like I've watched like WrestleMania 3, for instance, probably like 100 times. But I do think there's something to the fact that like if you were like, dude, if like I came out to Iowa and you're like, dude, let's watch some wrestling. And Ryan, you're like, all right, dude, I'm going to throw on this 2019 episode of Raw. I'd look at you and I'd say, what the fuck is your problem, pal? Who the hell wants to watch this?
Brian, I wanted to get to Brian's comment real quick. So he talked about going last night to Winter's Coming. He says a father brought his 8-year-old daughter to the AEW show, and she was screaming her lungs out for CM Punk. Beautiful thing to see. AEW definitely has a younger skewing crowd. I would say still not as many kids. It's more of an adult-oriented crowd. And Justin and I actually talked about this at Full Gear in person. Aaron was there too. And I'm not saying there's not kids there, because my kids who are younger than that, actually, when I have wrestling on, AEW is the one that they want to watch with me. But, you know, there's more swearing. It's a little bit edgier product. I said to Justin, like, I probably wouldn't take my 6-year-old to an AEW show, just even like the chants from the crowd. But we noticed in the crowd at AEW, you know, like the young people were like in their 30s. Like, we didn't see a lot of college age kids, for example, at AEW. It's still like that skip generation to me. Like, you don't see a whole, like, they're there, but not a whole lot of teenagers, not even really a whole lot of 20-year-olds. It's like the young people there are in their 30s, around our age, like on average. You know, it's I don't know. It's a skip generation with wrestling fans. That's what I always say.
Yeah, well, let's talk about AEW and let's go into the factors. So if you look at these last 3 years, well, what's the most significant thing probably to happen to wrestling? The birth of AEW. Mm-hmm. Competition is back, baby. And, you know, the first Double or Nothing was May of 19, and then they got TV in the fall. And to many wrestling fans, myself included, AEW is superior to the WWE product. And when you have a superior alternative, all of a sudden, the warts of the other thing, in this case WWE, get a lot uglier, right? It was before AEW, like when this podcast started, we were probably a little more willing to look past creative transgressions, right? Because we wanted to watch modern wrestling. So it's like, all right, well, this kind of sucks, whatever. But all of a sudden, when you have, and there's so much wrestling on TV now, and when you see something that you like better, all of a sudden you're like, well, F this. I don't want to watch this like crummy product. There's like good wrestling I can watch every week. Do you guys feel similar in that regard?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right on the nail on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
It is one thing, though, for AEW to be better. Again, that's a subjective opinion that I think all three of us share. But WWE at the same time, it's not like, ooh, AEW is better 2 out of the last 3 weeks. They're really, man, WWE's giving it their all, but they just can't get over the hump with me compared to AEW. Like, no. Like, I look at WWE's bad. Like, it's not even close for me when I watch the 2 programs. Like, AEW, okay, not always. It's not a perfect promotion. Maybe sometime we can look at them and what they need to do going into 2022. But it is a far superior watch for WWE than WWE. I don't think it's necessarily fair to just pin this all on AEW. Say, well, AEW came and now WWE sucks because of AEW. Like, WWE is independently bad from AEW, in my opinion.
Agree.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right, that's the past. People came here for the future, right? As we head into 2022, I think one of the most striking things about WWE is the complete lack of fresh matchups we've got on the horizon. I mean, it's frightening. We all assume it's going to be Brock and Roman at Mania 38, which is not fresh by any means. They have previously headlined 2 WrestleManias. One of them would have been 7 years previous. 7. What about the other title match, though? What do you even want to see? What about the Royal Rumble, for God's sakes? In a month's time. Like, it used to be we could sit here any coming year and be like, okay, this is the dream first-time match I want to see. 2005. Let's throw out another random 2000s year, for example. There were murmurs of they might consider doing Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania, which they did do. I mean, to even compare anything that they've got on the docket to that would be truly offensive, in my opinion. I mean, what is like the big marquee matchup that you personally would want to see in WWE in 2022?
Riddle versus Goldberg.
Yeah. There's not. I mean, yeah, the biggest match they can do right now all involves older people. Like Roman and Rock is probably the biggest match they can do. And below that, it's Roman and Brock, which they've already done multiple times, like you said. And then outside of that, it gets really murky. Like I've seen people talking about with KO re-signing and everything, like Owens and Edge might have a feud. That'd be pretty interesting, but it's not like, I'm not like super into it. I wouldn't mind watching that, but what is out there? We all wanted Big E to get the run as world champion. We've got that. That's a good thing. I mean, we didn't even mention that as one of the highlights. That's a highlight to me is Big E winning the title over the last 3 years. Happening recently.
His run is kind of smelled though.
You're right, but the moment was cool. But there's not an opponent for him that I'm like dying to see at WrestleMania. And yeah, when you get. Usually when you have great WrestleManias, at this point, you can start to kind of piece it together. I mean, you can go back into our archives and listen to us talk about, even in years that weren't great, we were talking about matches that were probably going to happen and did happen months in advance. And I don't really have that feeling right now on anything other than Brock and Roman for a third time.
To this point, and again, out of this 3-year period, 2018, the WrestleMania where we all went to in New Orleans, we were head over heels looking forward to that thing. There were people going in saying, this could be one of the great WrestleManias of all time. We were breaking down this card like, oh my God, this is going to be great. All these things.
I wrote a column on it. Yeah, about the strongest, possibly the strongest card in WrestleMania history.
I mean, you look at some of these cards for the last couple of years. Are you kidding me? and, and you know, it's funny, Ryan, you mentioned a lot of these big matches involve older talent. Well, one of the big stories of 2021, no doubt, the complete dismantling of TakeOver era NXT, 2014 to, I guess, the present, or a couple months ago. Virtually, you talk about a generation being passed or skipped with fans, Ryan. How about an entire generation of potential WWE superstars being wiped from the promotion?
Yeah.
I mean, when you sit and you watch WTV and you're like, my God, I feel like they've done this match like 82 times, or my God, this guy has been on TV for 10 years. What the hell? Well, I'll tell you why you're saying that is because the pipeline that they were supposed to have was not only stopped, but was shoved. Everyone was sent back or sent out of the promotion. I mean, just look at the champions of NXT in the TakeOver era. Okay, Ciampa's the champion now. He's not making the main roster ever, right? That's pretty much understood. He's going to be a trainer when he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Samoa Joe was the champion before him, right? Have we ever gotten an explanation why he just randomly relinquished the title, by the way? Is that coming?
Boy, I'd completely forgotten about that.
Did Vince hold him at gunpoint and just make him do it, and we're just going to all forget about it?
That's what he hopes.
Let's play a game, though. Okay. Before Samoa Joe, the NXT champion was Karrion Kross. Where can he be found now?
Gone.
Before Karrion Kross was Finn Balor. How's he doing?
Falling off of turnbuckles.
It was Kross because Balor won it. Like Kross had to vacate it, right? He got hurt. I'm almost positive that happened.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
Keith Lee was the champion before Karrion Kross. Where can I find him on WWE programming?
Gone.
Adam Cole. Where can I find him on television?
AEW, baby.
Far superior product.
Johnny Gargano.
Potentially part of that far superior product soon. We'll see. Well, maybe not particularly soon after his child is born.
Yeah. It gets more fun too when you think back. Malachi, don't call me Aleister Black. Where can he be found on TV these days?
Yeah.
Andrade, don't call me CN Almas. Where can he be found these days? I mean, so
some of these guys aren't particularly young though either. We should also mention, like, that's the problem too. Even with that pipeline of bringing up these people, they were established indie stars who went to developmental and then they brought them up. But like, we're just getting. We could do a whole show on NXT 2.0. And its function now. It is more what NXT should have been, developing young talent, but instead it was the super indie promotion, and now AEW's completely replaced the need for NXT in that regard, and they're left with a kitchen without anything in the cupboards.
Yeah, and that's what you're right. I think if AEW really did want to harm one aspect of WWE, it was NXT, because I think Hunter, he was sitting there and he's like, okay, well, they're not going to give me SmackDown, which is, again, I've told the story many times before in this program. When the brand split was reinstituted, it was Hunter's idea, and he wanted to get SmackDown. Vince liked the brand split idea. He did not like Hunter getting SmackDown. So Hunter, I think, was like, okay, well, I'm not getting that, so I'm just going to make NXT this cool alternative to the main roster that the fans who don't necessarily like Raw and SmackDown, they'll like me. And then AEW came along, and they're like, well, NXT is still WWE production. And we like the not WWE production better because we don't really like WWE. So he was really hard. But to your earlier point, yeah, you're right. It wasn't true. It had not become developed. It had long ceased to be developmental, NXT, under Hunter's watch, the NXT 1.0. But still, those guys should not have been in NXT very long and should be populating the main roster right now, having good matches, more intriguing stuff. Like, when you look at just the barren wasteland of those Raw and SmackDown rosters, the lack of fresh matchups, well, it's because the guys they groomed to be on the roster aren't there. Yeah. They're on the other freaking show for the other team. So, and this puts a lot of pressure, by the way, on and the NXT 2.0 guys. Because, some of these guys, we're going to go back to just how old some of these people on the main roster are. They can't wrestle forever. And so the hit rate for NXT 2.0 has got to be high. I mean, if those guys aren't good, they're in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is Edge going to wrestle till he's 60?
Maybe.
55? I mean, it's like, I mean, they've got to, really, I mean, there's a lot of pressure to have those guys come in because they wiped out a whole generation. And those who did make it through initially, because it wasn't all first this way, they, some of the early champions of NXT had some success. Owens, who just re-signed, Sami Zayn. These guys are not the answer for turning around the future, though. Jake Roberts rule, everybody. I mean, I think one of the reasons we were all so shocked about Kevin Owens resigning is what is there left for him to do?
Yep.
What's there left for Sami Zayn to do? AJ Styles is coming up on a 6-year anniversary. Did not go to NXT at all. Jake Roberts rule institutes him. Finn Balor will hit 6 years next year. For those unfamiliar, the Jake Roberts rule is very simple. Jake Roberts had a better WWE career than 95% of people who've ever been in that promotion. He was there for 6 years. It's very hard to be relevant, fresh, good for more than 6 years. So just if you're wondering.
Talking about some of these guys, Owens got an immediate push, but for the most part, even when you talk about guys like, Nakamura, as somebody in the chat just mentioned, but even like Braun Strowman, it's like they refuse to strike while the iron's hot with a lot of guys. It's like Bobby Lashley took 2 years before they decided to make him into a monster. And even like Drew McIntyre, they stuck him into some random tag team with Dolph Ziggler, who is probably on his third term of Jake Roberts at this point.
He's the FDR of WWE.
Yeah. So Dolph Ziggler became Dolph Ziggler 2009, I want to say. Like, I remember him being in a Rumble and being treated like a total jobber, which I love that too. Like you go back and watch this guy. Oh my God! To be fair, Shawn Michaels was treated like a jobber once in a Royal Rumble, and he worked out okay. But 2009 was a long time ago. Okay, that was a few beers and a few podcasts ago. And to be honest, if you want to be real nitpicky, Spirit Squad was 2006. So Dolph Ziggler has been on WWE television for 15 years.
Jesus.
Coming up on 16 years. This is insane. That'd be like if Hogan came in 84 and was still there in 2000 without a break.
Well, and also keep in mind...
he went off of TV for a little bit, but for the most part.
Well, and a big difference is Hulk Hogan actually drew money.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm just thinking, timeline of like a guy being around. I'm not comparing him to Hulk Hogan, but yeah.
So going beyond NXT, let's take a look at those that are there on the main roster right now. Even in headlining positions, people that are viewed as the stars, Reigns, Big E, Rollins, they've all been there since late 2012. When did Big E debut? I couldn't remember.
It was before,
right around that time.
It was before WrestleMania 31 came in as part with Dolph Ziggler and excuse me, 29. Yes. Okay.
I was when you said 31, I was like, that's not that.
Yeah, with Dolph and AJ Lee.
Yeah. So he was there for the cash, and I remember, but he had to have been there for a little. So if he had to come in, like, let's just say early 2013, the Shield we know debuted in Survivor Series 2012. That was 9 years ago that we've been seeing. And Roman Reigns, I know everyone wants to, oh my God, this heel character, my God, they've got it so right. It's so perfect for him. Well, it would be more palatable and less boring if they didn't try force feeding him as a main event babyface for like 5 to 6 years previous to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, he's good now in his role, but he's been a main event guy for over 6 years.
Well, and he's recently been beating anybody who you could think might be a challenger for like Big E or anybody.
Nobody to beat him. Yeah.
I saw that comment, by the way, Philip. Thank you for that. Oh wow, we're getting all the information. I like this, Philip. Thank you for doing this. So December 17th.
Top Rope Nation researcher here.
December 17th. There we go. My God. What a famous day. Just like 6 years before the McMahons cut that promo, Big E debuted. And here's you know, with Bruce and Johnny Ace, who were brought up earlier, since they've come back, and they very much, and you talk about making a power play. This is why I think Bruce would make a power play. It's no coincidence who they've wiped out on the roster, because those NXT guys, who are they going to be loyal to? Who were they going to be loyal to? Hunter. Because Hunter brought him through. They were going to be more loyal. And Hunter, I think, this is me speculating. I don't know this. But I think I have a good intuition. I think Hunter, his whole goal with NXT was he was going to have a whole generation of guys that were more loyal to him than Vince. They were his guys. And who got wiped out with all these cuts? It's almost all Hunter people. And Johnny Ace and Bruce, since they've come back, who have they leaned on heavy? People from the 2000 to 2010 decade.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, it's not that they've just been there for so long. How many of these guys have peaked already? Like a while ago. Like how
That's what we talked about with Owens. Yeah.
Like, but it's way more than Kevin Owens. Like Kevin Owens, like Kevin Owens can still turn in a decent performance. You know,
no doubt about it. But his character peaked years ago, like 15, 16. And, you know, since then, he has been treated like an upper mid-card guy.
Yeah, as both as a babyface and a heel. And that's true. I mean, look at some of these guys. Edge, I know he was gone for a long time, but that's also forgetting about the fact that he was a television regular from 1998 to 2011. And it's not like the WWE is demonstrably different from when he left 10 years ago to today.
Yeah.
And Bobby Lashley, okay, they got him right, you know, last year or this year, but he's been on TV. He was on TV in 2007. Rey Mysterio is still on TV. Randy Orton is still on TV. Jeff Hardy recently released. How long does he go back? The Miz was on WWE TV, I believe, in 2006. So, like, I think their thought process, well, we're going to attract people back that were watching in that time period. But the thing is, like, are those people really going to be like, oh my God, all these same people are still on TV? Like, that's the way most people think about it.
Yeah. It's like WCW attracting back the old fans with much bigger stars, but they were switching companies, so it was like fresh.
Yes!
It's like you're gonna attract back people from watching the same people from 15 years ago when they've been there the whole time. So it's like, oh, they're still there.
Sheamus
nothing's changed.
is another guy. I mean, God bless him, okay? A good hand, a good worker. But, I mean, Cesaro, we all love him. How long's he been in this company for? I mean, it just feels like it's the same people, and it's I hated that soap opera comparison in, like, these stupid magazines in 98, 99, where it's like, it's a male soap opera wrestling. But it feels that way, because, like, these soap operas, you know, it's always like, isn't it like the same characters are, like, on it for, like, ever? Like actual these daytime soaps. I feel that's what WWE is. It's just like you could put it on. You could put it on at any point in the last 15 years. It feels like it's the same damn show, and you haven't missed anything. You know, I told the story one time. A buddy of mine, long since stopped watching wrestling, but I was telling him about SummerSlam. This was last year. He's like, "Who's in the main event?" And I mentioned Randy Orton. He threw his hat in the fire almost. He's like, Randy Orton, are you kidding me? and for a lot of people, like, that era was when they stopped watching. Yeah. It's not like you're bringing back Steve Austin and The Rock. So this roster's getting older, which makes Edge and Miz. Okay, I guess they haven't watched, but like Edge and Miz in 2022? That's a match that feels like something that should have happened in 10 years ago.
That reeks of desperation.
And especially, and don't even get me started on this bring your wife to work day element that I'm sure they're going to go with. That is going to be not inspiring at all. The only fresh talent I could come up with on Raw and SmackDown these days, Damian Priest. Have you guys watched last couple weeks? They don't still have him doing that silly cartoon face, do they?
No,
when he gets mad. That was real bad. I saw this the one because remember we all thought they were going to turn him heel on Survivor Series. Like I watched and they had him like do this like I'm so mad. It was like really awful and should never be spoken again by anyone.
No, I wonder who he got those stage directions from.
Yeah, exactly. You can just tell, and you could tell he was so uncomfortable. At least it wasn't like when they had Mia Yim pretend she was having convulsions that one time. That was a low point. Riddle who, as Jim Cornette points out, had birds fly out of his ass this year.
Mm-hmm.
That
is true.
I cannot believe they're
That is
still
true.
doing that.
Yeah, but the thing is, Riddle, the way he's portrayed, it's going to be a certain level, right? Like, he's basically there to make Randy Orton look cool in 2022. Like, we're using the.
So this was in the chat earlier. Randy Orton, Matt Riddle for the title at WrestleMania.
They're going to go for a breakup, I guess, but that's an interesting feud because I don't think anyone's going to cheer that. Who are they going to cheer? The WWE house. They're going to cheer Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Austin Theory. Oh, how about these segments? Remember when the corporate Rock first started and they had him standing behind Vince McMahon, getting slapped and doing jumping jacks and receiving pencils?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, because that would have been stupid. That's why you don't remember it. But yeah, Austin Theory. I love how people think this guy's going to be like our good buddy Liam O'Rourke always talks about the journey, how it's just as important as the destination. And like Austin Theory at some point, I'm sure will do something of substance, of note. And then it will be hammered over our head. This guy's a big guy now. He's a major player because we say so. But the journey is so poor. Like, who could get fired up to see that big moment when this guy's, doing the freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger presidential test behind Vince McMahon? I mean, this stinks. And getting slapped. You want to make a star. What if he would have just no-sold the slap and just hit Vince? You
Go into
laugh.
business for yourself.
No,
buddy.
No, I'm not talking about like legitimately. I'm talking about what if they scripted that? If that was the story.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not the way to go? They did it with Owens a little bit. Owens, has cachet, obviously. I know Street Profits, they're younger, but Vince McMahon doesn't really value tag teams, so I didn't include them. And it's not just the men either, guys. 6-year rule again. This WrestleMania will be a 6-year anniversary of Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha's 3-way match at WrestleMania 32. How many new female stars have been created since then?
Bianca's as close as they got. They once again, going back to my earlier point about striking when the iron's hot, they had a moment with Rhea Ripley. I think they could have done something, but they didn't.
Alexa Bliss came later in 16, so it was after that. So you could count her. Rhea was a major strikeout. Just a major strikeout.
Asuka's DOA.
Yep. Ooh.
Wait. I wonder if Frank's listening. What about fucking Dewdrop?
That's for you, Frank. Yeah, it's dire. It's dire on that side too.
I mean, Bailey obviously is a big, but like, it just doesn't feel like. I mean, we're like Alexa. I mean, she's not getting back to where she once was? I don't think so.
She's a star, though. She's definily a star. I mean, like, she sells a lot of merch.
Do you want to see her ever again after that hideous character?
Well, that wasn't the question. That wasn't the question. You asked about who are the stars they create. She's definitely a created star. No doubt about it.
Okay, going into 2022, though, is Alexa Bliss like who you're going to build the women's division around? Is she like the future star? That's the thing.
It's not like a future star, but I'm just saying she's a star that was created post that WrestleMania triple threat, which was in early 16, because she came up in the fall of 16.
I think the draft, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they've given some women runs. I just think like when you look to the future and like who's going to carry the ball beyond. I mean, I guess they could just stick with these three or whatever, but I don't know, man. I don't. And when you've got two champions, we've talked about this in the Facebook.com group, right? That when you have two women's champions, it's tough to have two contenders. Viable contender. I mean, Liv Morgan and Toni Storm ain't it. Sorry, folks.
Let alone tag team challengers for the women's tag title.
Oh my God, remember when people honestly thought that was like with and that's funny where this conversation's moving in a little bit. But people like thought like, what do you think the WWE needs to do to get better? And people were like, oh, they need to have women's tag team champions. Are you freaking ribbing me? The women's tag team titles might be lower right now than they were during Jumping Bob Angels v Glamour Girls. As a matter of fact, I'll submit that they are worse. I don't think that I haven't seen a women's tag team title match that good.
So you mentioned that WWE doesn't value tag teams, and you mentioned the Street Profits, but don't you think Montez Ford is a guy that has a huge potential. Like the ceiling's very high on him. I mean, some of their big stars have come from tag teams. So it's a possibility. I do think that he's a guy who has tons of charisma. He's great in the ring. Now, their social media team needs to realize that his frog splash is far superior to Dominic Mysterio. But I mean, he's a guy that he's got potential if they do it right.
Remember when we did a podcast on this show once and we talked about, Ricochet and Matt Riddle, who's going to be the bigger star?
Yeah, it was. We went back and forth on that. You said Matt Riddle. I said Ricochet.
Well, no, yeah,
great wrestler.
I'm not making this about between you and I. Saying that
I know we talked about.
I'm saying that neither of them are really a big star right now. After all that, like we're like, which one's it going to be? Who's going to be the guy? And the answer was C. Neither A or B.
Here's the thing, though. If you compare Montez Ford to those two, so Ford in the ring is incredible, high flyer. He has more personality, more charisma to me than either of those guys. Like to me, it's not close. I know we talked about Riddle as a guy you could potentially build a brand around. He does kind of come across as a nerd, though. You got to admit, it's not even just the WWE booking. Matt Riddle.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he kind of comes across as just a stoner geek sometimes. It's not just the booking like that. He just personally does, and I think Montez Ford just seems cooler. I think all like total package, charisma, the way he carries himself, how he is in the ring. I think if I compared Ford to those two, I would bet on Ford. Personally,
I like Ford a lot. A lot of his shtick seems like the Rock cosplay. Like he's just miming his stuff.
People say that about Ricochet too because he idolizes him. But yeah.
The problem is with anybody too, and this is like an underlying thing we haven't even mentioned. We're like, oh well, who's gonna be the next guy? For there to be a next guy, the system needs to be better. Like the thing with WWE, it's not just like, oh, they booked this match wrong, or oh, they went with the wrong person in this position. I'm like beyond that. The system is broken.
Mm-hmm.
With the WWE. Like, I just, like, their star-making devices aren't that good. Like, you're right, Montez Ford has qualities that theoretically, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see this guy moving up. If I believed in the WWE, I would say, yeah, okay. But I just don't, I don't believe that even people who I'm like, oh, this person's got to be a shoo-in to be a big name this year. I just don't think they're going to do it right. And that's, like, actually, to be honest, like, maybe, like, the main point of anything. I just don't believe in the WWE way of doing things right now. Go ahead.
They can't even use, it used to be that you use the titles to help build guys. Maybe they start in the tag and then they go to the mid-card title, the Intercontinental, US, whatever. Then they go to the next big one. But I just happened to peek at this today. In the past past 3 years since the night before, the infamous Raw we're talking about, there has been 15 SmackDown tag title changes, 14 Raw tag title changes, 14 Intercontinental title changes, 15 exactly. 15 US title changes. I mean, titles are just being handed back and forth. They don't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, Shinsuke, what has Shinsuke Nakamura gotten out of this Intercontinental title run? Do people remember he's the Intercontinental? Oh, don't start with fucking Rick Boogs. So, all right, that brings me to our next point. So, moving into 2022, what changes do you want to see made in the WWE? My number one, without a shadow of a doubt, is ending this brand split because I didn't like the brand split the first time they did it. I definitely don't like it now.
And you appease your two networks if you get rid of it, because then you can have your stars showing up on both shows. It just doesn't make any sense at this point.
The networks have got to hate it. Yeah.
And what's so dumb about the brands, but there's many things that are dumb about it, but it's like Roman Reigns is clearly positioned as the superior champion, right? I mean, he's beaten the Raw champion the last 2 years. But even like if they didn't do that stupid gimmick at Survivor Series, like Roman Reigns is clearly positioned as the top guy in the promotion. It only cheapens that to have a second world champion. You only really want to do this. Like it did make a little sense coming, in the early 2000s when they're, Austin and Rock left. And it's like, okay, well now what? and it wound up kind of not kind of, it did. You got one Batista and Cena both came up. But then at one point, and there's podcasts out there, somebody maybe have the tape still, where, I was like, well, you got to end this because John Cena is clearly positioned as the guy. So why do you have a second champion if you just want to build a promotion around John Cena? And that's like the easy stuff at the brand split that you can see. Like, it's not even like, okay, why are there 2 women's champions, 2 tag team champions, like you said? Other things that you would like, what would you like to see changed in WWE in 2022?
I mean, like I said earlier, it's the camera cuts. I need the 50-50 booking to go away. Like, stop trying to put your marquee matches on every single show. How about some more jobber matches? Build people up so that you can use them at another time. But obviously it's long-term storytelling, which they just don't do anymore. And it's a Vince McMahon problem, as we've already said. Like, I mean, we're just screaming into the wind here until he's gone.
And I think it is till he is gone. I don't think Vince McMahon will ever step down. And talk about the sale, and if they were to sell to Disney, like, they would keep McMahon running the show, even if they sold the company, because to outsiders, Vince McMahon is the guy. He's the one that has the reputation. For people that don't follow the industry closely, they're not going to know that he's been out of touch for years, and they're gonna spend the big bucks to buy the company, and they want Vince in charge. So I don't think what we talked about earlier, if Vince stepped down and Nick Khan took over and stuff, it's just not realistic. He's not going to step down. Now, if something, God forbid, I don't want anything to happen to Vince McMahon, tragic or anything like that. But if for some reason Vince McMahon was gone, I'm not
I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs.
If Nick Khan took over, because he's a business whiz kid. This is where I took issue with the idea of Bruce Pritchard being top booker, because I'm not sure Nick Khan would make that call. I think he's smarter than that. But yeah, Vince is not. He's not going to step down. It's not going to happen.
Are the
He's a workaholic.
Star-making devices broken, like the Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank? You have two winners every
Royal
year.
Rumble still carries cachet, I think. I think Money in the Bank, nobody really cares. I don't think it makes. I won't say nobody cares, but I don't think it's a star-making deal at all.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, Rumble because of its history, but man, look at Edge last year. How his WrestleMania title shot turned out. I mean, again, that's kind of the exception to the rule, and I think the Rumble's still there. But the journeys, they don't set them up. Things that I want to see changed with the WWE is, again, getting rid of these themed pay-per-views. It's October,
yeah.
We have to do Hell in a Cell. But those are small things. I think. Obviously, but some of this stuff just isn't going to be done. I want to see the wrestlers have more autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it before. When I watch Raw and SmackDown, I'm not going to mince words. It feels like a poorly acted high school play where the actors are performing at gunpoint. You can tell when they don't want to say the shit that they're saying. And I watched this, the Creed brothers, down in NXT 2.0. They put this video on Twitter. I was looking at it before we did the show. And it's impressive. They were doing this workout. I mean, my God, I'd freaking be dead after 2 seconds of what they were doing. But one of the things I don't like about WWE, it always feels like the performers are trying to impress the McMahons. Going back to the original start of this podcast, where they're not just trying to be themselves and be big stars. It's like, I'm going to impress, the people in charge by doing this. I hate that. And that's the thing. The McMahons are the biggest star. Going back to that promo, the McMahons are the biggest stars, and I think that's a problem with this promotion.
They've been, the crowd has been conditioned to think that way, and they gave them that response in that promo. We heard it. You heard the cheers, Kyle.
You heard the cheers. There was something else I was thinking about. Damn it! And this is why I write things down, because then I was walking, I was like,
the Metallica analogy.
I'm going to come back to that. No, I'm going to come back to that. There was one other thing that I was thinking about WWE that I just really, really wanted to see changed. And God bless it. I didn't write it down.
The sets.
And Oh, I don't care. I don't give a damn about the sets. Oh, it's just, this is what it is. Because it came back to me. Justin was talking about long-term booking. And it's not just long-term booking. It's just being committed to your booking. Yeah. Okay? Let me give you two very recent examples of things. And these are things that once upon a time would drive reviewers absolutely insane. But because we've been so conditioned to shitty booking like this, nobody even cares anymore. This day one title match they got on the Raw side. Okay, this 4-way they built to. The build for this is illogical and heinous. So you had Seth Rollins win this 4-way that felt that, might as well have been like the freaking bronze medal game in Olympic hockey. It was him coming off a loss at the pay-per-view.
Norway was in there.
Norway was in there. No, somebody else was coming off a loss at the pay-per-view. Finn Balor was in it. Owens and Ray had been persona non grata for a while. And they're like, yeah, we deserve a title. Why? It's two guys that have been doing nothing and two guys that just lost last night. Rollins wins that. So he's the number one contender. Okay. Well, then Kevin Owens, who lost that match, found a way to get into it. Okay, that's kind of dumb. That defeats the stakes of the match that you established. Why did I care so much about that number one contenders match if a guy's going to sneak his way in? And then Bobby Lashley, go back and check the tape on this, our Crown Jewel review. I said, what do they do with Bobby Lashley? The guy was indestructible, and then they beat him 5 straight matches. Well, the answer was they're going to just bring him back randomly, kill the Mysterios, and then beat all 3 guys in the match, and he's in too. That is hideous booking. If you like that booking, I'm sorry, you're just wrong, damn it. And
we haven't even mentioned like the babyface heel dynamic and how the babyfaces always get killed.
Yeah, Big E, your new babyface champion, just got smashed clean.
Yep.
And I'm sure he's going to win, but it's like he's going to pin somebody, but he's not going to be demonstrably better than the other 3. And then there was this SmackDown tag match last week where it was to see who the best team was in WWE. First of all, they just bring a team over from Raw, RK Bro. Okay, I guess the brand split is a rather soft brand split this time. But correct me if I'm wrong. Did we not just do Survivor Series to establish that? and
they want you to forget that already.
This is truly unbelievable. So they had the 2 tag team champions competing to see who the best team was, and a team that wasn't the champions, New Day. And New Day beat both champions in that match. So completely undoing what RK Bro had done at Survivor Series. I mean, just that kind of stuff that is so easy to pick apart needs to stop. It's just so bad. And again, I think it goes to Vince because Vince doesn't give a shit about that. So I'm going to close with a couple counterpoints. Okay, we've been making fun of WWE now for an hour and 33 minutes. Okay, according to the clock. Maybe a little shorter. Again, we don't ever stop watches out, Dave Meltzer. But did you guys hear that today? He was like, it was a hilarious exchange with Alvarez. He was making fun of the 6. He's like, well, no one's got their stopwatch out to see if it was actually a 60-minute match. Who would have a stopwatch out? And Alvarez is like, you do for every Royal Rumble. What are you talking about?
yeah.
It was because Dave, that's always a thing with Dave. It's it comes in at 158. Anyway, we love you, Dave. And so we've been making fun of WWE for an hour and a half, right? I'm going to offer some counterpoints to what we did the last 90 minutes.
Oh, no.
Is going to a WWE show in 2021 essentially the equivalent of going to a Metallica concert in 2021? I'm just picking Metallica out randomly. You could insert random groups. Bruce Springsteen, for example, you could probably put in this
Poison?
equation. I think you're kind of
I'm curious where you're going with this now.
Okay, you're kind of stretching a little bit with Poison. Maybe. I'll give you Poison. If you want it to be Poison, it can be Poison, Justin. Okay.
Explain.
Okay. When you go to a Bruce Springsteen concert in 20, do you really want to hear him play any of the new stuff?
Yes. His crowd goes for that. I knew this is where you were going. I made this point on a pod we did. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
Okay, well then Bruce is not a good example, or you're not a good example as a Bruce fan. Because to me,
no. I want to talk about this. I made this point, and I can't remember if it was on the flagship or one of our Patreon shows, but I talked about playing the hits versus giving them new stuff every time out. And I specifically mentioned Springsteen because I said people go to Springsteen concerts because he plays a different set every night.
Oh, no,
and
no,
he's still
that's
writing number
different.
one album. He's still writing number one albums that he plays at his concert, and the crowd is into it. Nobody is not into it when he plays the new material. And I compared that to, like, I don't know, Kyle's favorite band, back when they were touring more, the Eagles or something like that, where they would play the same set, just the greatest hits, no, not really any new material. And I specifically said WWE is like when you go to the band that plays the greatest hits all the time.
Okay.
And I
all
said
right,
Springsteen was a different thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's where I'm going, and I shouldn't have mentioned Springsteen because you're a big Springsteen fan. You ruined it, so I should not have said Springsteen. But I said Metallica. The reason I used Metallica is because I was like just watching, like Metallica in concert, and it's like a big deal, right? I don't know if you guys like saw something, like they just did a bunch. And it's like it looks like a big deal, and you hear them play the old hits. You're like, this is cool, but like, God, I mean, nobody wants. Like, I know some people who went to like Metallica last time they came in Cleveland. They're like, God, they played all this freaking new stuff. Nobody wanted to hear that. Like Pearl Jam is my favorite band. I'll make this. I don't want to hear Pearl Jam's new songs. I haven't wanted to hear Pearl I'm like freaking play the stuff from the '90s, and I feel that is kind of what WWE is. To your point, so I mean, you got where I was going. You just refused to have Bruce Springsteen linked in it because you're a
well, it's not factually accurate.
Like, oh, here we go. Okay,
it's not, man. His latest album's like one of his probably. Some people say top 5 album he's ever had. To be honest with you,
that
really
sounds like I've never listened to it. And that sounds like a stretch, but that's a different podcast for a different day. My point is, like, is that what WWE fans are? They're like, we're cool with just seeing our old favorites, and we just want to see things the way they've always been. Is that what the WWE fan base is like? It's like going to see it's like. All right, maybe we'll hear that occasional new song, and we'll be like, oh, okay, it's not bad, but play Enter Sandman, play one. That's kind of like the WWE. You said it with it's like going to see a greatest hits show.
That's what the casual audience wants. The casual audience wants the greatest hits, and the hardcore audience wants something different. We are the hardcore audience. We want something different. We want them to play. Maybe we want them to play the rarities. Like if you go to a Springsteen concert, if you bring that back around, the hardcore audience. They want to see the new stuff, but they also want to see the rare stuff from the back catalog. Whereas the general audience, they want to hear Born in the USA.
Yeah, but I just think like first of all, we need to be careful with casual. I don't really know how many casual fans exist. Like I think there's what we are, but like the people who like WWE are hardcore in their own way. They just really like WWE.
On the recent product, they've trained a generation of fans that this is the only way to book, and what you've seen over the last 10 years, this is the way.
Yes, and on that point, that brings me to my other point because we got that off the rails here because I dared to insult Bruce Springsteen, even though it really wasn't insulting. Anyway.
I think you just heard what I said on another podcast, and you forgot I already made this point.
Look, man, I'm trying to remember what the best matches of 2007 are. I can't remember what you're saying about Bruce Springsteen every freaking year. Anyway, an underrated story in 2021, when I look at the landscape and I go on Twitter, is how many WWE fans are content with the current product. There are some, and this is going to lead me to a conversation we have with Garrett Gonzalez on Facebook, because I said I would mention this. So hopefully he's made it through this show to this point. Or at least, it's not that they're content with the current product, maybe, but they're also certainly unwilling to give AEW a fair shake. Because like what you were just saying, Ryan, WWE's kind of trained a generation. Hey, this is the show. This is what wrestling's supposed to be. And if anyone else does it differently, that's stupid. If anyone tries to, do something unique and, create, well, that's dumb. This is the way wrestling should be. And I'm not talking about some of these heinous bad faith actors on Twitter. People like, let's go through the hit list again. WWE Junkie, Brad Shepard, Bill Shannon, Jobber Nation TV. I'm talking about people that should be
Gareth.
WWE Gareth is the other. I mean, these are people who should be cyberbullied off the internet. Now, if you do that, I'm gonna. Okay, now if you do that, I'm gonna have Ryan delete this podcast because I don't want to get blamed for it. But if you want to do a Top Rope Nation listeners, go ahead. Okay, I'm not talking about. I'm talking. There are people who just seem content, but and to that McMahon, it was sad how many that people were cheering for the McMahons in that promo 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Who gets fired up that the McMahons are taking back Raw? Who bows to Vince McMahon when he comes up? Apparently people do. But I wanted to get to something that Garrett said in the thing, because we were talking about this Kevin Owens signing yesterday. And I was kind of needling and just being a dick. And I was like, well, I was like, Garrett, what if you don't like WWE and you just want it to change? And then I was like, the correct answer in parentheses, which is the correct. And he's like, well, you're probably not watching then, but there's still 1.5 to 2.2 million people that watch WWE every week. And that's a true statement that he made. But I feel like if you would go back to 2010 and I was criticizing something about WWE, I was like, man, I want this product to change. Somebody's going to say, well, there's still 4 million people watching this show. And if it's like 2005, and I'm like, dude, this product needs to change. Well, there's still 5 million people watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I know there's streaming services, okay? But I think I know it's hard for me, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. It's hard to look at the last 20 years of WWE, see these declining numbers, and not note how it corresponds with the declining quality of the program. Like, as the program's gotten worse, the rate, and yes, streaming's part of it, competition's part of it, but I don't think that tells the whole story. And AEW, okay, gets criticized sometimes, and it's a criticism that has merit for only appealing to its base, right? When you look at sometimes people are like, well, this booking's not going to pick up any new fans. Well, at what point do we criticize WWE booking and staying the same because they want to retain their diehards for driving off people the same way, right? It's like AEW, okay, they don't expand, but WWE, yeah, people still watch, okay? And it's more than AEW, but it's very clear that remaining the way they are, not changing, being a stale product, does, over time, drive off people. Does it not?
Yeah.
I mean, 60% of their audience in terms of pure viewership over the last, 5-6 years?
Yeah.
If you look at Raw's numbers, 5 million to under 2? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you got to say, okay, yeah, well, people still like this, smart ass man who doesn't like WWE anymore. Okay, yeah, I know people still like it, but there's also people, they're losing people. And it's not just because fucking Netflix exists. Like the shit, can you tell me that the WWE is good in the last 3 years? And that's, I think, the point of this process that hopefully people have enjoyed over the last 100 minutes or so. The answer is no. Who likes the WWE of the last 3 years? I mean, what kind of asshole would podcast about this stuff?
That's great. Oh, we will have a WWE Day 1 post show.
Yeah,
in early
really
January.
looking forward to that. Yeah, I know.
We're doing that for all of you that tune in. Yes. Yeah, things are dire in the world.
I mean, it's tough.
Right
I mean, Justin had mentioned this earlier. I'm with him, man. I mean, the weeks I know we're not going to review WWE television, there is a 0.0 chance I watch it.
There are, I think Adam threw this on the chat though. There are definitely those people who are just, it's like they're so loyal to a corporation and it's so weird. And I saw people celebrating, yes, KO signed with WWE. Why would that excite you? I mean, why do you care that much that he re-signed with WWE? You realize you could see him wrestle still elsewhere. They literally don't want to watch another product. They are so loyal to this corporation, and it's very weird. I don't get it at all. And I mean, a generational thing, I guess. We grew up with 2 major wrestling companies most of our lives, and I don't get this. I am
so glad you brought this up because I thought of this. This is something I thought of. It used to be that you liked wrestlers, right? Like you had favorite wrestlers, and if they jumped, who cares? I don't care if they jump. I like the wrestler. He's gonna be good over here.
It's kind of exciting sometimes.
Yeah. Now it's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, when there is a subset of fans online when guys jump from WWE to AEW, oh, they're no good. I never liked him anyway. People with O'Reilly, all of a sudden he was Kyle O'Jobber. I saw it again. That was from some of the real bad faith actors. Bottom of the barrel people. Again, folks, don't cyberbully. Okay, that was a Freudian. I should have said that. maybe that WWE junkie guy you can side with bully. Okay. But but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just odd. That like, we joke all the time. Who the fuck cares about brand supremacy? Who's loyal? They have cultivated. Now it's not the majority, and I don't think you can get away just catering to that group because it's dwindles. But there is a solid group of people who just love. They don't have a favorite route. They just love WWE. And that is odd. Yep. I'm with you, Ryan. Those are odd birds to me, man. Like if AEW got bad, I'd be like, well, fuck this.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't want do you not want the company to get better? Like, I don't understand that at all. It's just like, well, watch no matter what. And we're not going to criticize it, or I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's
bizarre.
But I mean, I don't know. There are people who do like it. I just think it's a dwindling number. And I just don't think you could keep saying, well, 1.5 million people still like this. So that's good. Well, what about in 3 years when it's 1.2?
Mm-hmm.
And we're having the same conversation. I mean, I don't know. I don't see, I want it to be good. Like you said, Justin, I remember you and I did a Spotify or one of those shows, the AEW post shows. And we were like, we're doing that. We were talking about tribalism stuff. And we both said one of the reasons we're so critical of WWE is that we want to see it change and get better.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. What kind of business does their business model with the mindset of these people still buy our products? Nobody. It's always, how do we get more people to buy our products? How do we appeal to more people? There is no business in the history of the world who sets their goals for the year and it's like, I hope we can continue to sell our product to those people only. That's just not a way it works.
Well, to be fair, they do. They always tell you in these interviews, oh, well, we're trying to reach all these people, like Roman's like, oh, AEW, like they make it seem like AEW's is like this just niche audience and they'll never get bigger. Well, WWE, we've got our sights on bigger things, but that really hasn't happened. Like,
it's just not the goal. It's just not the goal, though. Like, you're always trying to draw in more people. That's the whole point of business. So, like, to say, well, yeah, it might suck, but this many people still watch it doesn't make any sense because that's not the goal. That's not what you're supposed to do because, as you said, those people have been gradually tuning out. And the whole idea is to grow your business, not just retain where you're at. To say it's bad, like, that's not a counter argument.
Yeah, no,
many people still watch it.
I mean, I think, but my thing is, I was saying WWE and Titan Towers, they do want to obviously grow their own. I mean, that's obviously a goal for them. I just think that they really either don't know how to do that or just are incapable of it.
I mean, they used to be capable of it, but they've gotten, with WCW going out of business and everything, like they've gotten so used to just doing what they think works and surrounding yourself with yes men like Johnny Ace and Bruce Pritchard, and just keep it rolling, keep the gravy train going.
They wanted to change. They knew that they needed to right in that 93 to 96, and they changed.
Yeah,
right. And that's what I want to see. Like going back to like the band analogy, like you can for me, I can only like a band for so long. Like after a while, it's just like, all right, they've peaked, and we're gonna find something else. But like the WWE is just like a band that just keeps making the same freaking album, like, over and over. But just it's like every album is just a little bit worse than the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's the head coach who's still trying to get that I formation to work in today's NFL.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, God. Still running that Wildcat.
Or kicking his kicker for missing field goals. I think that's why that second hour of Dynamite last night was kind of odd and uneventful. I think the Cons, they were on the phone. They were giving old Herb the 86 job, man. They had figured out. They're like, all right, like I think as soon as Tony Khan, that Iron Man, or as soon as the 60-minute draw was over, Tony Khan's like, I got to go with my dad. 86 is the coach.
Hopefully that means they know when to cut bait.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. And, AEW, like we said, they've got their... But I don't know. I hope people enjoy this. There's a lot of frustration. This was actually born from a rant that Frank had on the Facebook page where a lot of people were just ranting, oh, this frickin' WWE just makes me so mad. I was just trying to like articulate some of the issues, and hopefully we did that, and people like this. I think going into 20, I'm just not going to sugarcoat it. I think WWE stinks going into 2022. I think it absolutely stinks, and I have one request for this podcast. Ryan Drosty, because I forgot to do this once, and I said I was going to do this shtick, and I forgot after Survivor Series, but I remember now, and I'm going to do it. Ryan Drosty, I believe you're a fair man. I believe you're an honest man. I don't believe you're a hyperbolic man. But I demand right now on this podcast, you say the WWE smells like cow ass.
It does. The WWE does smell like cow ass right now. You would make an Iowan say that.
Yeah, I didn't even know. Is it good, Justin?
No, it's not.
No, it's not fucking good.
It's not good, Kyle.
It's
really not.
I don't know, man. I view this product as low as I've really ever. I love doing the show with you guys. Obviously, I love talking to our listeners. I love talking wrestling, but it's so frustrating when there's so much like great wrestling out there, not just present day, or maybe not as much, but just in the history that you want to talk about. And then it's like, God, is there any wrestling that you would rather watch less than the last 10 years of WWE?
We want them to be good.
Yes, I do.
We're not. This is all supposed to be constructive of what's wrong. We want it to be good. There's been points during this podcast's history over the last 5.5 years where things have happened we were very high on. I know it hasn't happened a lot in the last year talking about WWE, but there were times when we were very high on some things they were doing. Go back in the archives and you could find them. And there was also times we were more critical of AEW, like early 2020 or Dynamite's early days. I think January 2020. But I think we're objective. That's what we like to say on the show. And objectively, Kyle, WWE smells like cow ass right now. It really does. It really does.
It does. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they got some aces up the sleeve, but I don't count on it. I sure
hope so, man. It's a lot more fun to do those WWE post shows when shows are a little bit better than this. So we'll see. Guys, again, subscribe, join the Facebook group. Link is here in the description, either the podcast or the video version. You can talk to us every day, talking pro wrestling over there. A lot of good stuff happening over in the Facebook Pro Wrestling discussion group. You can follow all of us. Aaron says new t-shirt. You can follow all of us on Twitter. I am at Ryan Drosty. That is Droste. You can find the show at Top Rope Nation. Kyle's at TRP Kyle. Justin at Justin Joint, JOYNT, and we will be back very soon. We're heading into the holidays. Hopefully all of you have a great holiday season, and we'll be getting a hold of you soon. Take care.